please turn it to silent and turn it off. We're going to call the roll tonight. Our secretary is not here. Consists of Ms. Kingsley over here is going to sit in for her tonight. Ms. Kingsley?
President Noblock,
Here.
Vice President Gillen,
Here.
Secretary Pro Tem Kinsley, here. Treasurer Rayner, here. Ex officio Marthouse, Director Becker,
Here.
Director James,
Here.
Director Ramirez,
Here.
Director Tozan,
Here.
Director Nutting,
Here.
Director Attell. We have a quorum.
Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Becker? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, normally the secretary asks for the approval of the minutes from 11:15. Somebody else like to do that tonight?
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Mr. Nutting makes the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. James seconds. Any comments, Mr. Nutting?
No.
Mr. James?
Nothing.
I just want to say publicly what a good job our secretary is doing.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other questions about that? Okay, if not, we'll call for a vote to approve accepting the minutes from 11:15. All in favor, just please raise your right hand. Okay, it was unanimous. The next thing we want to approve or amend the meeting agenda. Does anyone have any need to add something to the agenda? Okay, so then we'll vote to approve the agenda as written. Everyone who's is for that, please raise your right hand. Again, it's unanimous. Okay, we do not have any presentations tonight. We have the President's report. Just for your information, the use of the clubhouse in terms of rentals has increased significantly in the past month. We've had several Christmas parties in the last couple of weeks. Example, last Friday we had the Red and White, which is a fancy ball, okay, with about 125 guests. And then Saturday night we had Santa Claus, and they had about 134 people there at that one. About 50 kids, the rest were parents and grandparents. So things went real well. We thank the Recreation Department for setting up the Santa Claus one. Our kitchen closed yesterday, so the flooring can be replaced. The expected date to finish that is the first week in January. Until then, we're going to have a very limited menu in Latitude 30. Latitude 30 area remains open, so if you're looking for something to do, you might want to go over there and have an adult beverage with your friends. On the agenda tonight, there's a motion to adopt the fees for 2022. The monthly dues will remain the same as they were this year. I don't believe they've been raised in maybe 3 years now, something like that. In addition, the yearly fees for golf will remain the same, assuming that you pay your golf dues before January 31st, 2022. Included in the proposal is actually a dues decrease for tennis. This is an attempt to increase tennis play. We'll just keep you accurate records of it during 2022, and depending on the number of new players, next year's board will have to make a decision about how to proceed based on the number of players. Pickleball has really increased play significantly or dramatically, and now you can actually pay one fee for a whole year to play pickleball. In June of 2022, there will be an election for president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer, plus 3 new board directors. Additional information for that will be coming out in the next few months. Lately, there's been gunfire in the marsh area south of Diamondhead, south of I-10. We assume it's some form of hunting. Remember, just a reminder, that the city has an ordinance that prohibits firing weapons within the city limits. The city limits of Diamondhead, the southern border of the city limits, is in the middle of the Bay of St. Louis, which meets the northern border of the city of Bay St. Louis. Okay? So I don't know if any of you are out there or not, but please refrain from doing that. They do have wildlife and fisheries and some of those who are out there kind of looking for people. I have a couple of questions that actually came up last month, or this past month. One new resident asked me why he was not supposed to drive his golf cart on the golf cart paths. I explained to him, you know, most amateur golfers really don't have a real good idea of where the ball is going to go once they hit it. Okay, so it's a significant danger in getting hit by an errant golf ball. I've been hit once in the back of my big butt, okay, and hit in the air from somebody behind me, and I tell you what, it knocked me on the ground, and it was, let's just say, rather bad looking for 2 weeks or so. So the same restriction applies now to walkers, runners, bike riders, and people pushing baby strollers on the cart paths, okay? Again, this is definitely a danger issue. The same person then, he asked me, he should be allowed to drive his golf cart anytime he wanted to on the cart path because he paid his dues to the POA. He did not know that golfers who have their own carts pay an extra $700 a year for a trail fee to be able to use your golf cart when you're playing golf. And also, if you don't have a golf cart and you rent a golf cart, and very few people walk out here, to tell you the truth, the people who rent the golf carts also pay an extra fee to help keep up all these kinds of things. You know, we have around 550 homes on the 2 golf courses right now. And there's about 200 condos on these 2 courses too. Elliott Homes is proposing another 100 homes on the golf course, on the Cardinal course, plus other developers are building additional homes on the courses. Homeowners on golf courses certainly realize, or should realize, there's a chance that a golf ball may end up in your backyard sometime, or even possibly break a window. If that happens, most homeowners understand that the POA is not legally involved in that situation in any manner whatsoever. That situation is handled between the golfer and the homeowner, okay? In addition, if a golf ball goes in the backyard of somebody, everyone's always asked to be respectful of the homeowner's property. It doesn't happen very often, but occasionally a golf cart, somebody drives it in somebody's backyard and or hits the ball out of somebody's backyard. That's just completely, I'll be politically correct, completely prohibited, okay? There's some other, I think, terms we can use. The same person did ask me after, he said, what would I do if I broke a window with a golf ball? I told him I'd contact the homeowner and help, offer to help pay for it. But that's my personal decision, okay? If you want to keep up with what's going on in the POA, we ask you to sign up for the e-blast, Facebook, and Instagram. Sometimes other social media sources do not publish entirely correct information. On behalf of the POA, we wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Okay, next, committee reports. Mr. James, do you have anything?
No, I do not.
Mr. Tozan?
The Recreation Committee met, it was a brief meeting. We had a low turnout, but the items discussed was the planning for the summer camp. We hope to expand the summer camp to include golf this year and get more exposure for all the kids, for all the amenities that we have. We also discussed the fact that pickleball is improving tremendously, and we discussed the fees in preparation for the vote tonight. That's it. The House Committee did not meet this month.
Okay, Mr. Becker?
The golf committee met. Some of the items we discussed were sand traps. We've all gotten into the habit during the COVID when there were no rakes in the traps because we didn't want people touching them to ignore the sand traps after you hit a ball out of it or try and rake it with your club. But now that the grass is slowed growing, the superintendent is spending a good bit of time trying to get the sand traps back in good shape. So we'd like to implore all of the members to rake the trap after you go in it and don't just, we've seen places where somebody just walked completely through the sand trap to get to the other side, doesn't even look like they hit a ball, and then just walked out and left it. So we're asking everyone to please rake the traps. We also talked about the golf shop credit carryover. If you haven't heard, if you have credit in the golf shop, it normally would expire by the third week in December. They will not, because of the trouble we're having getting full of merchandise at this time. We've agreed to let them roll over to all of next year. So if you have a credit in the golf shop, you do not need to use it by December. You can use it at any time during 2022. That's a one-time thing, hopefully. We're going to have a Beat the Pros tournament. The pros are going to put together 2 3-man teams, and the members are going to put together 3 teams, and they're all going to play scrambles, and we're going to try to beat the pros. So we also talked about the broken window policy and the play out of yards discussion, and that's it.
The pros' kids, which side are they going to play on?
I'm sorry?
The pros'
kids,
children are going to play on
the
which
pros'
side?
children are not eligible to play on the professional team.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Geller?
All right, admin committee didn't meet. The airport marina committee didn't meet, but several of the committee members, Greg Abady, Mike Riso, and we met with a number of the residents over at the airport and did a little tour. What we have noticed that the letter that was sent out asking people to clean up behind their homes and their hangars has been successful in some cases. Some, there's still some work needs to be done, and we want to thank those who have responded to that letter. Remember, even though you don't see it from the roadway, if you keep trash and some things behind your hangar, the people that are across the taxiway can see it. And, it's when you go back there and you tour the taxiway, some of it is not very, I guess you could say, something that you would like to have look at every day. The other thing that was noted that Mike Riso noted that there is a number of things that the city can do to help with drainage over there. There are some ditches that need to be cleaned out, and a number of improvements can be made, and those we'll hope will be seen fairly soon. There's some ongoing discussions going on, and we'll report more on those as they take place.
Okay. Ms. Rayner, do you have anything? No. Mr. Ramirez?
So the safety committee met. We were not able to accomplish what we really wanted to accomplish, but that's okay. We made the decision that that we would just let it go for this year and go through the holidays, and we'd start over again in January. Grounds committee met. We did our annual walkthrough. Had a list of different items that we identified at the different areas that the POA is the owners of, and submitted those items to Greg, and his folks took care of those. We got a pretty quick response back on everything, either that they had solved the problem, or they were working on it, or that they were not gonna do anything at this time because. And so they gave us explanation on everything, and I really want to thank them for getting back to us so quickly and taking care of all of that. Thank you, Greg.
Is that it?
That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, next we have the general manager's report.
Good evening, everybody. Before I forget, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you and your families. Typically, as is common with these meetings, I put together an information packet for you, and included in that is the previous month's financial report. This month, we had problems with the computer, and that information will be sent to all of you electronically. In your packet, there is detailed information on food and beverage revenue summary. Many times we go through the cycle and say, well, Tuesday's our slowest day. We need to react in this fashion. So we began taking some statistics and recorded for the months of October, November, and month-to-date December. And we found the following information to help us with management and staffing. The revenue by day of the week indicates that Friday generates 24% of the total revenue, all Fridays. And location, latitude 30 of our various locations generates 70% of the revenue. So that's good information for us, and it's a fairly detailed report. You'll see it. If you have any questions, we'll try and answer them. Collections efforts continue with the Justice Court. I think it's scheduled to reoccur January 27, if I'm not mistaken. But year to date, the efforts have proved positive with payment plans being enacted. The committee who's responsible for collections have done a great job. The $352,352 year to date is what they've collected. So in addition to that, the amenities use information sheet is available. And we also, I think it's going to be later in the agenda, but I think we're going to talk for a minute about the marina and the bids regarding the demolition of Pier 1 and 2. And on the golf side, I think we're going to spend a minute and talk about renewing the agreement with Silver Slipper, and also an expenditure that we feel is very important relative to the golf courses. So unless there's questions, I'm going to sit back down and enjoy the rest of this meeting.
Okay, anyone have any questions? Okay, Mr. James, do we have any POA member comments on agenda items?
We do not.
Okay. We didn't have any unfinished business. Now we go to the regular agenda. We have Resolution 2021-1. It's a motion to approve the resolution admission fee. Somebody asked me already today, why are we doing this as a resolution? A resolution is another form of a motion, but it allows us to write a little preamble into it explaining why we're going to do something. And it's used when an organization wants to place special emphasis on something, which we think this is worthwhile. And it also gives the staff a one-page document that when they're dealing in this situation, they can look on that and get that straight. So since not everybody is here, and some are listening or watching on TV, I'm going to actually read the resolution. Whereas in order to ensure the financial stability of the POA, it is necessary for the POA to adopt policies and bylaws to address the rising numbers of members who fail or otherwise refuse to pay dues, and to incentivize new developments to join the POA. Therefore, the Board of Directors does hereby make and adopt the following policy changes effective January 1, 2022. It says admission fee. There are 4 parts. Number 1, any purchaser of a property which is in good standing with the POA shall be required to pay an admission fee in the amount of $200. In order to obtain the fee waiver, the prorated dues for the remainder of the calendar year must be paid at closing. Should the property transfer occur after September 1st of the calendar year, the new property owner may choose to pay the remaining prorated amount of that calendar year, plus the entire dues for the following year at the prevailing rate at the time of transfer. So if it goes up the following year, that would not apply to them if they pay it that way. Number 2, any purchaser of property within an area or subdivision that currently is or has at any time been subject to membership in the POA, but which is no longer in good standing for failure to pay dues, fees, or fines, shall be required to pay either the unpaid dues or fees on the account or a non-refundable admission fee in the amount of $2,500, whichever is the lower amount, prior to being granted privileges of the POA. This provision shall apply to any subsequent owners of such property, residents, or businesses. Number 3, should the developer of any subdivision on property that is unplatted and are not subject to compulsory membership in the POA want to include the development in the POA and require each property owner to join the POA as a covenant running with the land, the developer should contact the POA to discuss options. And number 4, for any purchaser who is the owner or resident of any property situated within any unplatted area or subdivision of Diamondhead, whose membership is not compulsory and who wishes to join the POA, there shall be a non-refundable admission fee in the amount of $2,500. Would anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Mr. Gillen makes the motion. We need a second.
I'll second it.
A second from Mr. Nutting. Mr. Gillen, do you have any comments on it?
Nope.
Mr. Nutting?
No, it's self-explanatory and certainly necessary.
Okay, anyone else like to make comments on that?
I would.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you define compulsory?
Having to do something? Required to do something?
I understand. I'm talking about how it relates to this. You said homeowners that have a compulsory duty to pay dues or not.
I need some help on how to, I don't know how to say it, but if you're a member of the POA or have been a member of the POA, you should be paying dues. So that's
Okay.
compulsory.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure that out, how you're figuring that out.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, no other comments or questions, so we'll call the question. All in favor, raise your right hand, please. Okay, we have 7 yeas and 1 no. So the motion passes, the resolution passes. Okay, the next is a motion to replace the control panel in the Pine Golf Course pump house for not to exceed $14,000.
Number 2.
I've skipped one, I'm sorry. My mistake. Number 2 is 2021-40. It's a motion to approve the POA membership fee rate schedule in 2022. Anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Mr. Gillen makes the motion. Need a second?
I'll second.
Mr. James seconds it. Mr. Gillen, any comments?
It's basically pretty much the same as it was before. There's some small minor changes in the golf, and there's of course, I think you might mention a decrease in the tennis. But other than that, most everything else is the same as it was this year.
Mr. James, you seconded, I believe.
Yes, no, I have no additional comments. As Mr. Gillian said, there has been some increases in golf. However, if you choose to pay on a yearly basis, you get the rate at the prior year, which is somewhat of an incentive.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Ryan?
How many members do we currently have for tennis?
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we have a motion to approve the POA membership fee rate schedule as proposed. All in favor, raise your right hand, please. 7 yeas, 1 nay. The next, we have a motion 2021-41, a motion to replace the control panel in the Pine Course pump house not to exceed $14,000. Someone like to make that motion?
I make that motion.
Mr. Becker makes the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Nutting seconds it. Mr. Becker?
We had a presentation at the golf committee meeting from Greg Abedy and from Dan Heyman, the superintendent. He showed us a picture of the pump station control unit, which is antiquated, out of date, and has become terribly difficult to get parts for. The importance of this item is that the pump station in the Pine course is able to back up the Cardinal course if the Cardinal course pump station goes out. But the Cardinal course, the way it's configured, is not able to back up the Pine course. So if we don't replace this controller, and we should lose it during the drought months or the heat months of the year, the hottest months, then we might possibly even lose the turf, which we've worked really hard in the last years to improve. The golf courses are in good shape. It would really be a shame to let something happen now for this amount of money that could question that. If any of you want to see the pictures, the old pieces are basically 100 parts that are loose and screwed onto the wall. You can see in 2 instances where it had gotten hot and burned the board that it's mounted to at that time. The new one is a solid state unit, all in a cabinet with meters and gauges and switches, totally modern and able to be repaired or replaced as necessary. So it's very important.
Mr. Nutting, do you have anything? I've seen it. Have y'all seen it?
Do you guys have the pricing?
I'm sorry?
Do you have the pricing breakdown of what it includes?
It includes the
The panel?
installation and repair of that panel you're looking at.
Okay, is that the only pricing we got?
The only price we were able to get, it's a single price item. I checked with Greg and verified it with Dan Heyman and also with Darian McInnes. And they told me that since it's a specialty item that only the pump people who work on it can supply, that we were all right with one bid. But they did try to get others.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, so now we have the motion to replace the control panel in the Pine Course Pump House for not to exceed $14,000.
Ernie, excuse me just a second. This pictures that I'm looking at here, is this the pictures of the old panel, or is this the pictures of the new panel to be installed?
The new panel is the one that's contained in the enclosure.
Gotcha.
The loose parts mounted to the wall is the old panel.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand, please. Okay, we have 7 yeas and 1 nay. The next one, we have a motion to approve a bid to demolish Marina Piers 1 and 2 for not to exceed $108,700. Anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Gillen makes the motion. We need a second.
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Nutting seconds it. Mr. Gillen?
This is the low bid. We only had 2 bidders. J.E. Bories Incorporated gave the low bid of $108,700 to remove the damaged piers 1 and 2. That's everything that you see there now. All of the pilings, anything you see from our bulkhead out into the water, it'll all be removed. The monies will be reimbursed to us from a grant that we have from the Department of Marine Resources. This is part of the monies. We do have more money that will be used to replace it with the floating docks. The bids should be going out shortly to replace those docks, or at least one of them. And this work will start within 10 days after we approve it here. Of course, you have weekends and holidays that aren't included, and should be completed within 20 days.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So, while I'm not opposed to improving the marina, and of course we're using grant funds, I haven't seen any bids or a scope of work.
Paperwork.
Where?
The bids were opened last Wednesday. Okay? They sent that information out to everybody on the time it would be done. And Mr. Gillen was there, I was there, two engineers who handled it. Mr. Abity was there, Mr. McGinnis was there, and also one of the bidders was there. And they went through, actually, the engineers go through the whole process and say, okay, this is correctly done,
That's
this,
not a
and so
bid.
forth.
What are you talking about? Here's your bids.
Right. Where's the actual bid from them?
You should have been at the bid opening.
Well, if I got an invite, I would have been.
Everybody was invited, Karen.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, I don't understand what the problem is. They have to be done. It's an important part of our amenities. The money's gonna be reimbursed from grants. I don't know what you're complaining about down at that end of the table, but
Sir,
anyway.
I'm not complaining, I'm just asking questions. I
It was
think
a
I have the
public
right
bid,
to ask a
Karen.
question.
It was a public bid that was put out for everybody in the world to see, with the bid, the specifications, and the date that it would be opened, and that it would
So
be
where did
opened in
those go?
public.
Where did they go?
If you didn't go to it, that's fine.
Okay.
It was also on the state website,
Go
which
ahead,
we're
Gary.
required to do it, so the state website had it, because they also checked on the state website to see right at the beginning that nobody filed it electronically. The two engineers handled that. Yes, sir.
We also have a letter in our package from Kenichi's engineering firm, who was the engineer who wrote the spec, and in his letter, he writes to us that the low and best bidder, upon review of the bid, it's his opinion that their bid will be sufficient to successfully complete the project to the satisfaction of the POA, and he has discussed with J.E. Voorhees, Inc. the project details and scope of work. They're aware of the project requirements and are comfortable with the schedule of completion. He recommends the awarding of the project to this bidder.
Like I said, I'm not opposed at all. I'm just asking for information. I have the same letter that you just read. I just got it. That's all.
Yeah, and just for the record, the competing bid is an amount of $122,000 compared to the bid that is being proposed to be accepted of 108. So, just for the record.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, now we'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your right hand. 7 yeas, 1 nay. Number 5, motion 2021-43, a motion to approve the 2022 Silver Slipper Agreement for 1 year. Anyone like to make that motion?
I make that motion.
Mr. Becker makes a motion. We have a second.
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Nutting seconds. Mr. Becker?
We received a letter from Mr. John Ferrucci, the general manager of the Silver Slipper, who expressed his willingness on behalf of himself and the corporate office to renew the agreement for another year at the stated price. They're to get 50 coupons each month that are good for either one round of golf or for $40 to use either in the pro shop or the restaurant without discount. This was the same amount that we chose last year. It's just slightly more than we charge our members for a 10-pack if they want to buy a 10-pack. Plus, you'd have to consider this is a 50-pack. And we discussed it with Mr. Abady and with Chris Altice, the golf pro. It's up to him to schedule the events where they want to use the coupons, if they want to use any of them in a bulk fashion. And he says they're always cooperative. If he tells them there's something going on that they can't use the course that day, they're always amenable to postponing it or doing it at a different time. Sometimes they even have small tournaments where some of our members are involved, and so they're using their coupons to pay for members who have already paid to play golf. In addition, they don't always use all of the coupons, and there's no discount for them in the golf shop or the restaurant if they choose to use them that way, but most of them are used for golf. It's a relationship that goes back several years. We skipped 1 year, and they went to another golf course. Then they came back. It's the opinion of the golf pro and the general manager that it's a beneficial relationship. It also opened the door to the Silver Slipper scheduling other events at the Diamondhead Club, the club at Diamondhead. For instance, they had their annual awards banquet last year, which was a significant revenue generator for the club.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, this arrangement with the Silver Slippers worked out marvelously, and as Mr. Becker said, they don't even use all the coupons and we get all the money. It's a wonderful relationship, and I'm all in favor of it. It's all win-win.
Any other questions or comments?
One quick question. You
Yep.
said it was that it was $40, and I'm looking and I can't find it, but I seem to remember reading where it was $30. They were worth $30. I'm just trying to make sure that we're on the same page here. Is it 30 or is it 40?
You're looking at a past agreement.
Okay.
That's not the current agreement that we agreed to and put in place last year. Was 50 coupons at $40 for $2,000 or face value, Lloyd.
Okay, that's fine. I hadn't read that, and I guess I was looking at an old one as you said. So thank you, I appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we'll call the question for that. All in favor, raise your right hand, please. 7 yeas, 1 nay. Do we have any POA members' comments on non-agenda items?
We do not.
Okay. The next regular meeting is on Monday, January the 17th, 2022. We need a motion to adjourn. Teresa's not here.
She seconds. I'll make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Mr. James makes the motion. We need a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Tozan seconds. All in favor? Just say aye.
Aye.